Hello, beautiful. I'm your host, Nicole Goff. Welcome to the Ecstatic Life Podcast, the podcast for women who want it all. Health, wealth, freedom, authenticity, love, beauty, all of the hidden gems just waiting to be uncovered. This is the podcast for women who are ready to discover their inner creatrix, to discover their inner manifester, and who want to find the ecstatic in every day. Hello, and welcome back to the Ecstatic Life Podcast. Today I am here with Cheryl Daley, and she was a government employee for 16 years. She quit her job to homeschool her kids. She wrote a children's book on emergency preparedness and an eBook compiling what she has learned from interviewing over 120 homeschooling families on her podcast. She is the host of the Homeschool How To Podcast. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you on my podcast as I have been on yours now. So it's a great swap.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm not usually on this side.
I know it is. It's funny to be on the other side. Well, I am very excited to have you because this will actually be my first homeschool focused podcast interview, which is super surprising because I've been up to this for almost a year now. And I am a homeschooler and unschooler, really. I have homeschooled all 5 of my kids and run a homeschooling co-op. And it's such a huge part of my life and part of what makes my life ecstatic. And I have yet to do an interview on the subject. So this is long awaited. And I'm glad you're here to be my expert.
Oh, I'm honored.
So I would love to start out kind of at the beginning because what we are here to talk about today is your journey and how that journey from being in the more mainstream world and all that experience that you went through, getting out of that, moving into homeschooling and in this whole new perspective really made your life and your family's life more joyful. So if we could go back to the beginning, where it all started, where it all began, I would love that.
Yeah, well, it probably started from me going to school. I mean, I did not grow up thinking I would ever homeschool my kids. Just like most of the people in the world, I thought like, that's just for the Amish. I don't know how to sew. This is stuff I don't know how to whittle. It was never on my radar. And I remember even saying to someone that I think sending your kids to private school is ridiculous because you already pay taxes. Why would you not want to integrate your children with all the cultures that, are around you? Well, now I know why. But, so I went to school. I assumed I had a decent experience, even though I hated going and every day was just staring at the clock, waiting for the hours to tick by so that you can leave, so that you can then do it all over again. And when I graduated, I went to college, just kind of did the whole go to college because that's what everybody that's successful does. Okay, well, here's, sign the check and, sign the loan, and graduated still not knowing what I wanted to do, right? Because nobody hands you a list of jobs and says here, pick something. It's like you really have to come up with this stuff out of thin air. It's crazy. So I ended up becoming a government employee like both of my parents had been. It is not always the way, right? Become a teacher. Because that's why a lot of people become teachers too, because that's the only job we've seen modeled for 12 or 13 years. So that's why everybody just defaults to that. So I defaulted to the government employee because that's what I had seen my parents do. They weren't super successful, but we always had food on the table, right? So I did that for 16 years. And again, it was just sitting in a cubicle now, staring at the clock, waiting for the hours to go by. And then at night, it'd be like, well, let's pour a glass of wine or let's pour a martini because I don't want to go back to that place again tomorrow. And, you're just kind of trying to do something in the immediate to make life not seem so bad, and my mother had always just kind of pushed that on me, like, well, somebody always has it worse. So therefore there's no need to like seek anything better. That was my takeaway from her. But, now that I'm a mother, I definitely want my kids to take a lot more away from life, because it's like, wow, now that I'm pushing, I'm 41 now, I hope I'm not on the downhill, but I could be over that. And you look at these
No. It's the no fucks given 40. I am 41 also. I am reclaiming that. Perimenopause does not exist.
Yeah.
Just eat healthy. Take care of your body.
To 100. But,
yeah. No.
But you start looking at things differently, like what am I here for, and what do I really want to be doing? And I think it was during COVID. A lot of us woke up during COVID, and it was my first time. I would send my son to daycare at 6 months old. I started sending him to daycare for long hours too, because I tried to condense my hours into less amount of days a week. So I would try to do those 10-hour days so that I could get 2 or 3 days off with him, or 2 days off in the weekend, 1 day off in the weekend. So he was with a daycare provider for like a good 10 plus hours a day, and it would be 3 or 4 days in a row. And now that I look back at that, I'm like, holy moly. But it seemed so normal at the time, right? That's what everybody did. Of course, if I could go to work and make $70,000 a year, why wouldn't I do that? Especially to sit there and have a job that isn't hard. You just sit there, literally. Click open an email, answer an email. Government work. But, I during COVID, when they started masking 3-year-olds in New York where I live, it was like, hold up. This is my kid. My husband and I were like, we don't want him masked. We're not doing this. And that was the first time, even in a private daycare, but they were still part of, like, they followed the rules. They still got audited by the state and the feds. So they followed all of that. And it was the first time I thought to myself, I don't have control over my own child. That's really bizarre. You want to put something over his face. I'm telling you, he's 3. He doesn't need it. There's no logic in it. You're not doing it. And they were like, we don't care, Mom, what you have to say. So not that our daycare provider said that, but basically that's what the state was saying. That's what our government was saying. So it was the first time I had to really look at things and say, we might have to find a different route for raising our kids. We had one son then. And so we pulled him out, and I took him. I worked from home during COVID. So I was working. I had him here. It was really tough. I feel bad. Like, we probably watched a little too much Blippi at the time. But he's alive, though, so it's okay. And I started taking him to homeschool groups, because those were the people that were still getting together, because those are the people that didn't care about a virus. So we would go to a homeschool group a couple times a week, and I just started talking to these moms like they were aliens from outer space, honestly. I don't know how any of them still talk to me to this day. But, I would like basically ask them all these questions as if we were on a podcast. What do you do all day? What do you do when you're annoyed with your child? What do you do when you're stressed out? Well, how do you find friends? How will they socialize? And, quickly I learned that it wasn't so insane of a concept to homeschool your kids. And these people were actually pretty normal. And it was also nice to, like, have an afternoon off and just go talk to people and, have inspiring conversations, about anything, about raising kids or about things going on in politics, stuff that you couldn't talk about in the workforce, unless you were very liberal. They could talk about whatever they wanted. But so it was just it was like an unveiling of this other sort of lifestyle. And I said to my husband one day, I think I met somebody who had a podcast. And I was like, that's something that just anybody can do? And he said, yeah. So I said to my husband, I think I'm going to start a podcast interviewing homeschooling families, because I'm asking all these people in person. It would be cool to hear people from other states. And I initially thought I would do 50 episodes. I'd get one person from every state, see what the homeschooling laws are in each state, and that would be that. But here we are, like 140 episodes later, and I just keep hearing cool story after cool story. Everybody has a different reason, a different way they go about it, a different philosophy for it, different goals. It's just so cool to hear everyone's story and their why. And the more and more I hear, I'm like, this is how it was always supposed to be. And then you get into, and we can talk about that, the whole background of the education system. And I was like, oh, this is what you wanted me to do this whole time? Well, I will show you. And so when I had my daughter, I've been home with her at her side, other than a couple hours here and there that my in-laws had her. And it's crazy the things that I missed with my son that I never would have known I missed, because she needs me all throughout the day. Like, she needs her mom. Kids need their parents. And I never would have known that had I not had the experience of being with her all the time, all the little things she needs throughout the day, even if it's just to rub my arm for a second. And then that was her comfort, and she can go do what she wants to do. But he never had that, and I do feel bad, but I feel that it does give me a good perspective to talk to people, especially that are about to have children.
Yeah, and we don't know what we don't know, and it's so important to be gentle with yourself and to be easy on yourself, because you can get into a spiral with that. I know I did a lot of things wrong with my first. I had her young. She's 8 years older than her 4 siblings, and there was a point at which I kind of spiraled about, oh my gosh, if I had done this, if I had done that, maybe I should have stayed with her dad, and just all kinds of stuff. But you got to be, as moms, it's so important to be gentle on ourselves with that kind of stuff, because we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And so that leads me to my second question. You didn't know what you didn't know. And so how did this discovery of this new way of being, this discovery of homeschool, really lead you to be cracked open to some of the other things that were hidden in plain sight, as they might say?
Yeah. So getting to the conspiracy side of it, I think, let's see, I think all throughout, I consider myself kind of a dumb person going through school, because I didn't read a lot of the books, the smart people books, and, but I remember wanting to be smart. I was like, can I speed up? Can I get the Get Smart for Dummies version?
Public school does not encourage anybody being smart. Neither does the government.
Right.
So, again, be easy on yourself, because you are literally indoctrinated into that. They don't want you to think outside of the box. They want you squarely in, the path that they're pushing you forward through.
Right.
So,
which is probably why I didn't care about a lot of the stuff they were saying. So I was like, if you can't explain why, then I'm not going to spend the rest of my time listening. But, people would send, somehow I got my hands on this documentary as in my early 20s, the Loose Change 9/11, about, these two college kids in my state that put together a documentary about all of the oddities of 9/11. And I'm only a couple hours away. I mean, I know people that were down there. And but I watched it, and that maybe put a first seed in my mind, that makes logical sense, what they're saying. And then I just kind of went about my business, and you go back to the state work and government work and just tootling along, listening to CNN, and and even with I was a hardcore liberal, I would say. I seriously could have been one of those moms bringing my kid to a gay pride rally. And we have gay friends, but even they are this stuff is bull. We would never prance around. It's just not necessary.
It's not about the gay part. It's about the sexualization part.
Yes.
Why are we sexualizing small children?
Yes.
That's the part, right. What?
Right. And so it's just a combination of things. People send you, oh, geez, what's that other one? The Fall of Cabal. I remember spending a while on that one. And there was another really good one about how everything in the media is there to make you think a certain way. And that was a cool documentary too. So I guess I got started with those. And then COVID really opened my eyes. I think somehow I got my hands on the Plandemic series that Mickey Willis presented, and someone sent me an episode of The High Wire with Del Bigtree. So I think it was like I was starting to put my questions on my personal Facebook page, and most of the time it was met with hate, but people would private message me, hey, check this out. Like they were like, we don't want anyone to know, so we're not going to comment on the post, but here. And so I, and I watched everything with an open mind, and I think I had to say, wow, I was wrong. I was wrong about Obama. Oh man, I shouldn't have voted for Hillary. And and I'm at the point now where I do believe that politics, it doesn't even matter. It's both sides, opposite wings to the same bird. They're controlled by the same people. We're most likely not even being controlled by any sort of Americans. It is beyond. We are controlled by another country. I couldn't pinpoint exactly who. I have a few guesses, but where, it unravels so much. The lies go so deep. NASA, oh my God, the moon landing.
Then you go next level deep, and maybe it's not even a country, and maybe it's not even humans.
Well, I watched that movie, They Live, and I'm like, oh, geez. But what are they, AI in there, or are they aliens?
I'm not a movie watcher. I don't media very much anymore, because that's another part of the brainwashing. So
yeah. Well, if you can watch it with open eyes,
yes,
you're like, oh, they're putting it right out there. But I guess, it took a combination of things to really see. And then when you get into the education system, and that it was created by John Dewey and Horace Mann, they took it from the Prussian model to make people obedient workers, good soldiers initially. It was to make a good nation of soldiers that would be obedient and listen. And then when we got into the industrial era, the Rockefellers invested millions into the Board of Education to create the Board of Education. And they said, oh, here, just put a few of our people on the board, though, so we make sure that we approve of what you're teaching. And then they got a hold of the pharmaceuticals and, so it's snowballs. So they really just wanted a nation of workers. Oil tycoons are not going to invest millions or billions of dollars into education to create competitors to their industry. It's never going to do that. There's no logic. But nobody is that good of a person. Sorry, they're not. So they wanted a nation that, like they said, smart enough to do the job, but not smart enough to question it. And so I think that all of that stuff really got me in like that teenage rebellion mode in my brain, where I was like, oh, all right, mom wants me to do this, I'm going to do the opposite. So that's how I felt about the government in my late 30s.
Well, and so was that when you were still like embedded? Were you still in the government?
I was working for the government. Yeah, I've been a nightmare to my agency over the last couple of years, even up until Charlie Kirk's death, like a month ago. I was seeing like there were, not to laugh at that part, but there was a manager there who makes probably $130,000 a year, and she put, looks like Charlie Kirk got the day he deserved. And oh, you bet I shared that. I wrote her full name out. I tagged the agency. I tagged, I think, one of our local news stations. I said, even if I'm not there, I'm still going to make your lives a living hell. Not that I mean, she wasn't going to get fired because we're a very democratic state. They don't care, but at least I could be a thorn in their side a little bit longer.
Yeah. So was it the homeschooling that really brought that out of you? Was it being in that group? Because I know, like, with my homeschool co-op, like, us homeschool moms get together, and many of us have very similar opinions about things that are going on in the world, and we get chatting and work each other up. So did that really light a fire in you, or was that more like parallel to the homeschooling adventure?
I'd say this stuff happened before and pushed me to homeschool, because I didn't want my kids indoctrinated by the system, and I didn't want somebody coming in saying, okay, we're here for vaccinations, and just start, sticking them in my kid, because I don't trust the school. I don't trust them. And then, because they'll just go, oopsie, I thought you signed that permission slip. Oh, well. I have zero trust for the school district. But it's funny that you say that, because there's one group that we roll with who, when I started talking about the government, quickly shut me down and, we don't discuss politics here. Now, these were the people who were like the old school homeschoolers that like were, I don't even know, I can't put my finger on it anymore. But you know, those like, they used to be the hippies, but then they all turned into forced vaccinators when Biden said we should all be vaccinated. Yeah, like I don't know what kind of mind game that was, but they fell for it. And so they said I couldn't, even I said something about not trusting the government. I didn't say, something anti-liberal and pro-conservative. It was just, because we can't trust the government. And we don't speak about politics here. But then when the girl's mom came to the meetup on election day, she had her big Harris t-shirt on. So I'm like, well, okay, so I can wear it, but I can't say it. So that group, but it's funny because the moms and dads will like message me privately or come up to me when no one else is there, and they're like, I listened to your podcast. I think it's Israel too.
People are funny. I know that group you're talking about, and I don't have a name for that either, but it was a lot of my friends that were very like spiritual and very much like, we hug heart to heart so our chakras can like, combine and all like, and then it was like, oh, no, do not come within 6 feet of me.
Yeah. You didn't get your vaccine, put on your mask.
Yeah.
What?
I'm like, wait, how does this go hand in hand? It was very bizarre.
The government played it out perfectly because those people hated Trump so much that they would do anything the other side said. Anything. Yep. And then the people that really fell in love with Trump, I don't know, they just became, I don't know, they were like that popular girl in school that you hated. That's what the Biden supporters felt of the Trump supporters.
Yeah, and this is how it becomes. It's the two sides of the same coin because they're playing us against each other. Yeah. So we're too busy infighting and worrying about this high school drama-esque stuff rather than the big picture and really seeing what's going on. Well, to circle back around to your homeschooling journey. So you are in New York. Are you in the country or are you in the city?
The country, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in like upstate New York near the Capitol, and then met my husband. I mean, he's only like 45 minutes from where I grew up, but it is more country. There's a dairy farm across the street. We live on a mountain, so I'm more worried about coyotes and hunters and like getting shot in the crossfire of a deer than I am someone, a drug deal going down, like where I grew up.
Yeah, that's a whole reality. I don't have, I don't have a lot of experience with. I've lived in the country my whole life, and so I was curious if you had any any ideas about navigating that reality. But yeah, you're in the same position as me. We're out in the country. We live on a lake, and there's like duck hunters that I'm definitely more worried about than like drive-by shootings or anything like that. Yeah. But I can imagine.
Not like the hunters would purposely shoot us, but we're out for a little hike with the kids and oops, it's hunting season.
Yeah, they more just annoy me with shooting the ducks on my lake at 5:30 in the morning.
That would be annoying.
Yes. Yeah, it drives me up the wall. I hate duck season. Anyways, we digress. So your homeschool experience, what is it that you bring into that? So for us, like being out in the country, it definitely looks like a lot of daily time in nature and like really getting our hands dirty and gardening and working with animals and going on hikes around the lake. And, we really try to bring experiential learning in every day, much more than like, sitting down and doing book work. They have their time for that, but it's a lot more of like hands-on experiential learning. So what does that look like for you and your kiddos?
Yeah, I would say the same. After so my podcast, I interview homeschooling families. That's strictly all I interview. So I've been lucky that I've heard a plethora of people's experiences because it is so easy. And maybe it's just me because I've always had that sort of FOMO, sense about me. Like, it's Friday night. We need to go to the club. We're going to miss out. But that was 20 years ago. But, so it's very easy to think I'm not doing enough. Or, for instance, we missed our Tuesday play group yesterday because it was like I was going to get there. And, the kids are just kind of busy doing their thing. And I was busy doing stuff for, my Instagram page, doing a couple reels. And it's a lousy excuse to have missed a play group, right? Like, I was on my computer. But it's just, that's life. And I felt bad about it for a little bit. And then somebody called and said, oh, does your daughter want to come over for a play date? Okay, yeah, let's go do that. And then my son and I went and ran a couple of errands together, went to the library to pick up some books. He picked out some other ones. We went and took our dog for a little play date with my in-laws' dog. So, like, there's always something going on, right? So in one part of my mind, I'm like, what did we miss at the play group? Oh, they went to a park by the river. Maybe it would have been cool. Maybe I should have brought him. What did he miss out on? But there's always something else. And even if it is just sitting in your living room, maybe it is watching a movie together. Maybe it's playing some board games. Maybe it's weeding the garden. Like, it's all good experiences, and it's all better than mom being in a cubicle or dad being in a cubicle and the kids being away. And, maybe there's, I don't know, kids in the class that are disruptive, have some sort of trauma going on in their life, and that's leaking now into your child's life. Or maybe they're just staring at the clock. So, yeah, I think what my day looks like, it always looks like something different. And I keep saying I'm going to get a routine and a rhythm going, and it never really happens. But what we try to do is I get up between 5 and 6, and that's my time without the kids in the morning, maybe an hour or two, and I can either get some work done for my podcast and the Instagram page, or this morning I sat and just read a book for a little bit with my coffee. And then the kids wake up, we have breakfast, and then we do a little bit of book work. Or like today was a unit study. And I don't do it every day, but it was like, okay, it's raining out right now. Let's open the unit study. We did woodland creatures and, did a little song with it, did the little hand rhyme, read some books from the library about it. My son did his reading on the computer and his math. And then he went outside to play. And so I just took a video, actually. I told him to go outside, and I see him driving by the door. He's 7 with his tractor and my 3-year-old daughter in the trailer. And then he jumps out and he gets her out. He whips out his knife. I'm like sitting here recording this. I'm like, most parents would be worried right now, and he starts cutting down like the plants in the garden that need to just kind of be cleaned up a little bit. And then hands them to her, and she throws the weeds in the trailer. And so they're cleaning up out there. And I'm like, that's really cool. Kids got to be bored too, right? Because if we schedule every second of the day for them, they never have an opportunity to be creative. And I think that's where my problem was. I never knew what I wanted to do with my life because nobody let me just be bored enough to. At least once you get to middle school, because you got sports after school every day. You have a homework. There's always something going on the weekend. You're at school all day. And I think that's something we have definitely lost. And I haven't realized how important that is until you have quiet in your life. And, it's very easy to say, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. But like you said in the beginning, you have to be gentle with yourself and realize that everything will produce something out of it as a byproduct.
Yeah. Yeah. And today it's even harder because everybody is handing their kids an iPad or a phone or, it's like it's so easy to be overstimulated all the time. Mm-hmm. And we've ended up with this nation of kids that doesn't know how to be bored. They don't know how to be quiet. They don't know how to use their imagination. And, back to the conspiracy theory stuff, I would say that is by design. Oh, yeah. Because imagination is a very, very dangerous thing to the system. But again, I digress. I could do a whole podcast. I know on your podcast we started getting into all of that. We just have to get together again on one of our podcasts and just go down all of those rabbit holes.
Oh, yeah. They all lead in together, though. You're right.
Yeah.
They intertwine, and it is all by design. They're actually, as dumb as the government looks, there's somebody back there that is like, no, they've been planning this out for a while.
Mm-hmm. And they do, getting our children when they're young and hijacking their minds, and you can see it. I can see what happens to my own kids if they get too much screen time. But you can see it with kids, especially when you're like out in a restaurant or something like that. The kids that are just, so absorbed in screens all day. And yeah, you're either in school, and a lot of times in public school now, they're teaching on a screen.
I was just going to say that because my husband does commercial HVAC, and he was in a school the other day, and he goes, I was in this classroom, which was odd in itself because normally you wouldn't have like a grown man worker that doesn't work for the school in a classroom with kids. Right. So he was like, that was weird that they even had me in there. But I was fixing the stuff with all the kids there, and the lady turns on the screen and the reading assignment comes on, and the screen is teaching the kids how to read, like doing the lesson. And I'm like, oh, so like what our son does, because we've done a few different reading programs, and we've just figured it out that Reading Horizons, he really likes it right now. It does it for him. I'll sit next to him sometimes when he wants me to. Not that I'm for the screen. Hey, if you can do it without a screen, do it without a screen. But it was funny. I'm like, oh, so he's not missing out on anything.
No, and I want to go back to that concept of missing out and debunk that with you in just a second. But just to stay on that thread for one more second, it takes so much less time too when you're at home. We send our kids to public school, and yeah, they're just watching a screen, or they're getting disciplined most of the time, and they spend, it's like a full-time job. They spend 8 hours of their day. A lot of kids have to do after school. And what can get done at home in an hour a day, it takes a full-time job's worth of work at school to do. And that, I think, is just so sad and so hard on children. And then they come home and they have homework.
And that is to break up the family unit as well, so that you don't have time to play that board game together or cook dinner together. They've got to get to their homework. You're telling me they don't have enough time during the day to get their homework done, or to do what they need to do? They shouldn't even have homework, but you don't have enough time to teach it in the day. You can't give them 15 minutes at the end or an hour at the end to do. Come on. It's so bull, but they do it so that it is now they're bleeding into our time. Can you imagine if we sent our kids to school with like a sewing project that we were working on here? Hey, we're knitting socks. I'm just going to send it to school with the kids. So instead of math, she's going to do this on your time because you sent her home with homeschool last night, or with homework last night. Come on. Unreal.
That would be a lot more useful than most of the things they're teaching, honestly. Maybe it would be contagious. Maybe it would be contagious, and everybody would start learning how to knit in the class, and that would actually be useful.
All the things I was scared because, I can't homeschool. I don't know how to whittle. Now I'm like, I wish I knew how to whittle. I wish I knew how to sew.
That's the awesome thing about a co-op. We all bring, our different strengths, and then we teach each other. And
Amazing.
We take turns teaching lessons, and it's like, some of us are like yoga teachers, and some of us are sourdough bakers, and everybody brings what they do and teaches the kids, and the moms learn along. So it's like it's great. You learn all kinds of useful things.
And I think that's a wonderful thing to touch on, is how I am now learning so much more than I ever did in school. Just reading children's books with my kid and going to the little places that I wouldn't have been the mom on, the field trip at school. Now we're all the moms on the field trip because somebody usually always plans it, and we're like next week is homeschool day or homeschool week at Fort William Henry up in Lake George, New York. And we're about an hour from there. So I'm like, oh, well, let's go. We are reading the Tuttle Twins' America's History book right now. I shouldn't say reading. We are listening on audio with our book open in front of us, which is a fantastic way to read. We can all sit together and I don't have to waste my voice. But
gotta save it for podcasting.
Yeah. But you know how your voice gets so dry at the end of the day when your kid wants you to read to them because they don't want to go to sleep. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't drank water in a year. But
see, I have an almost 11-year-old, and I have now gotten her to do a lot of that reading to her siblings because that counts as school. Yes, if she reads to her siblings.
For both of them. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're listening to this Tuttle Twins America's History, and they're talking about the French and Indian War, which I had no idea was what Fort William Henry was, or even who fought in that war, because it wasn't the French and the Indians. It was French and Indians versus British and Indians. Thank you, Tuttle Twins. And and it was fought right here, right where I live. And yet none of my teachers ever took me there, or none of my teachers ever told me. We live on the Hudson River. I don't know anything about the Hudson River until I started reading children's books about it with my kids. And I'm like, this is crazy. This started the trade in all of North America and the building of the Erie Canal. I live on the Erie Canal. No one ever taught me this stuff. I'm like intrigued. And then, little birds built a nest outside my daughter's window this spring, and every day it was like, where are the birds today? Did they poke through? What are they eating? And it was like we made a journal and we sketched it, and every day the progression, when they flew off. And I mean, it's just, I'm like, I sat in a cubicle for 16 years while all of this was going on outside. So when you talk about Ecstatic Life Podcast, that's it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what this is about. It's the simple joys, because we miss out on that,
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I can imagine that part of that is so heartbreaking for you to see that those 3 years of experiences, just the little day-to-day things that we take for granted, we outsource, and my daughter, my eldest, she was in private school, public school, charter school. We did some homeschooling, but we bounced back and forth because honestly, she struggled with reading, and I doubted myself, and there was so much wrapped up in all that, But then, like with the subsequent ones, I saw where I had put so much pressure on myself to like be a certain way, and that I always was judging myself like, oh, I was a young mom also. So not just am I like falling behind with her with homeschooling, but, the pressure to not look like I was a young single mom, to not look like a bad parent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we miss out when our kids aren't with us for those experiences. You don't get the opportunity to watch the day-to-day progress of a little birdie trying to emerge from an egg or anything like that. So yeah, those little joys. Well, I want to ask you some questions about your podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have this huge bank of knowledge. Like you said, you did a whole ebook with 120 participants that you've...
Done.
Nice. Okay. So that gives you this other kind of perspective. So not just from your own personal experience, but all these experiences of all of these women and men, or is it all women that you...
Oh yeah,
women...
men too. I love it.
So yeah, could you give me maybe like an overview of your ebook, just like a quick overview, and then I think I probably have some questions about some of the experiences you've uncovered in the work you've done with your podcast.
Yeah, so the ebook, I was kind of like, wow, I'm getting to 120 episodes here. I want to know what the overarching message is for my own sake, right? Like what can I compile that the messages from all of these people? And so that's where that started out. And, I was going through each episode and taking the transcript and putting it into like ChatGPT, and then taking the next one and put it in like, all right, well, how are these similar? How do they compare? How do they contrast? And, and then it just kind of kept going. And then it was like, okay, well, what kind of rhythms do people have? Well, what kind of like learning styles? And then, people always bring up Charlotte Mason or the Montessori or, and all of it is like, okay, what really are the differences? So I kind of broke that down in the book. Like, all right, this is what the Charlotte Mason style is. This is what the Montessori is. This is what, I forget even, unschooling is. This is what the traditional schooling looks like. And then there's a few other ones. Classical, which there's classical conversations, and there's classical as a learning type. And one is within the other, but it is not solely encompassed. So I just kind of broke all of that down for people in the ebook. Let's see, I talked about my why I started. I talk about how to handle homeschooling or home education with a child with special needs, because that is something that comes up very often, and I've had a few people on my podcast discuss that. I talk about, these are sort of the most asked questions of people, and my answers to them, or the answers that I've compiled. These are what your family might come at you with when you tell them that you want to homeschool, and here are some answers that you could prepare or things to think about before. I really talk about, in the beginning, why do you want to homeschool? Like, write this down, because you're going to need to know why you want to do it. It can't just be like, it's a trend, or my best friend's doing it, or this lady on Instagram does it and says it's great. Why? Why do you want to do it? Because there are going to be hard days, and you're going to need to look at that why and, remind yourself. And also have your child be part of that why, because your why might change over the years, right? So yeah, your goal is going to change, and I really write down your fears and why you want to homeschool. Like, I started out the podcast that way. These are my fears to homeschool. I don't want them to be weird. I don't want them to resent me for missing out on things like football or the prom. Just those simple like, ooh, I got a crush on this person, whatever. But why do you want to do it? Write down that too, because you got to have the list out so you can see what your fears are in front of you, so you can see what your reasons are right in front of you, and how much longer is one list than another, and are these real fears, or are these things that once we talk it through, oh, wait, you mean they can have football games within a homeschool community? Oh, you mean they can still play football with the school even if they don't go there for academics? Oh, you mean they can still go to the football game down the road just because that is the school district we're in and it is open to the public? So there is so many logical things that can ease your mind once it's written down in front of you.
Yeah, so speaking of football and, getting your kids out and doing things, like that reminds me of what I said I wanted to talk about before, which was debunking this idea that homeschool kids are like socially awkward and don't socialize enough. And like, there's always this question, well, how is my kid going to get enough socialization? And I mean, so you've talked to like 150 or so parents, homeschooling parents, and have you found in your interviews and in your personal story, which I'm sure you have because it's my story and every other homeschooling mom that I talk to, that it's actually the opposite, that there are so many more opportunities, and not just more opportunities, but actually like quality opportunities, because your kids are really learning how to navigate in a more free range social environment, navigate those friendships versus the box that you're put into with socializing in the public school sphere, which is very much competitive and pitting kids against each other. And that can be really damaging for a lot of kids. So yeah, in your 150 or so interviews, what conclusions have you come to on that?
Yeah, so I remember one mom saying to me, your kids are going to be as weird as the parents are, which is true in any case. I think that's in public school and not. I mean, in public school, we see kids today that want to be cats, that, spend all of their free time on video games. So it's like, if the parents allow it, the parents show it, they're going to, take after sort of the things that their parents allow, their values, their home style, their lifestyle at home. I think yes, well, it seems daunting. Like, how will I give them the socialization that they'll get in school when we homeschool? When you aren't homeschooling, that seems daunting, right? But when you are in it, there are so many things going on. You can't even keep up. Like, I go on the Facebook and it's like, oh, this homeschool group is meeting here on Tuesdays. This one over here is meeting Thursdays. This one does a field trip every Wednesday. And this one, there is something going on all the time. And then and I think that you do need to experience as many as you can, because you're not going to find your people in the first visit or two at those groups, because chances are they've seen so many homeschoolers come in and out and in and out, and they don't stick around. So yeah, maybe the moms or the dads aren't going to be super friendly or as friendly as you would want, as welcoming as you would want. Maybe the kids are not going to be as welcoming. Of course they're not, because they're kids. They've got their friends, and then they don't know why you're walking in now. Once you show up, though, after 3, 4, 5 times, relationships do start to form. You're showing that you are serious about this. You get into conversations that are a little bit deeper than the surface level of the first week. So I think people need to be aware of that. It can't just be, oh, I went to this group, they weren't welcoming, and homeschooling's not for me, I'm going to send my kid back to school. Because you don't even know what's going on there. At least you're here. And even with the groups that, like, we have formed bonds with, there are still times my kid is left out. For a long time, my son was the one that was left out, and it made me so insecure. Like, what's wrong with him? He always wants to play with the younger kids or just go off by himself. He'll do fine one-on-one if it's just a play date with one other kid, but when it's him and a group of kids around his age, he shies away. And I just remember I remember yelling at him too. I did not drive you an hour to this play date for you to go find some 3-year-old at the park that isn't part of our group to play with. Why am I doing this? Just fearing that he was lacking in some sort of social awareness. And then as he got older, he's 7 now, I started to see he wants to be the alpha. And when that's tested, he's not going to fight. He is going to, just kind of go off on his own where he's comfortable, or go off to the little kids because they view him as the alpha, and that's just where he likes to be. It's not that he's bossing kids around, but it's just that he likes to be the one people look up to. So if he's in a situation where he's not, so it was interesting to get to learn that about him and talk to him about it through the way, and why are you doing this? And me really looking at my insecurity around it, which is really my own insecurity as the parent. And so yeah, it's super interesting though to just witness all of this stuff. And yeah, there are still kids that, okay, these two are bullying this one this week, and bullying is just so it's thrown around now. I mean, back in the day, bullying was like they stuffed you in a locker, right? And like now it is, sometimes I look at you cross-eyed and, oh, he's bullied. But, there is, it's interesting to be the parent witnessing it. Because when your kid's in school and you hear, oh, I was bullied, she was bullied, it was like you don't get the full story. You don't really, but there is a whole story unfolding here. And I've said to my son before, if he says, oh, this kid was mean to me, sometimes I will say to him, well, what'd you do first? Because if you did something first for that kid to retaliate and be mean to you, then that is life. You got to learn it now. I sound like I'm so hard on this kid. I am pretty hard on him, but but he gets a lot of liberties too. So it's just so interesting to witness, I guess, this whole unfolding of the relationships. And you learn more about yourself as you watch it and as you navigate their journey through it. But yeah, there is not a short of experiences as the homes. Last week we were a field trip to a farm, and I think the following week there was a field trip to the roller skating rink, and there's always just something going on. Like I said, next week, Fort William Henry, there's always something. And he does mountain biking. That's with a whole plethora of kids, so not just homeschoolers. That's a bunch of kids. And he's done wrestling in the past with school kids. He's done swimming. He's done soccer. There's lots. My daughter now is 3. She does dance. So yeah, on top of the groups that we meet with, there's all these other extras. And in school, just remember, like, you were probably always yelled at for socializing. So why do we think that's the place to send them to socialize?
Right? And not only that, but most kids are like looking at their phone next to each other. Like they're not even like speaking to each other, which is crazy. And that's another thing that I think a lot of people misunderstand about homeschooling is you can actually participate in the public school activities. So if you are worried about that, like you can actually still, I mean, at least here in Florida, like you can send your kid to pick and choose whatever you want. And if you want them to participate in the football team or whatever, like they can still participate. And to what you were saying about witnessing, I think that that is so important because, you know, and there have been a lot of tragedies that have happened at public schools in, you know, the last 10, 20 years. And the fact that the parents in the homeschool communities are witnessing is such a protective factor because you're not going to see that kind of thing happen with parents being there to help support these relationships. A kid isn't going to be bullied to the point of wanting to, you know, shoot up a school like that's not going to happen. When parents are there creating that structure, creating that safe space, or however you want to say it. Safe space has gotten a bad rap, but that safe container for these relationships to develop, you know, rather than a kid being thrown in. Let's say a kid is socially awkward and they're thrown into this setting where they don't have anyone to lean on, and they might not be telling you. They might not be coming home and telling you what is going on with them, and you have no idea. And from my experience, you know, I was homeschooled, and I think I talked to you about this on your podcast. I was homeschooled, and then in 8th grade, I decided to go into public school. The main takeaway for me, and I have a good friend, Shelby Kukel, who you've talked to also, and she had the same experience. Her sister and her also homeschool kids that around the same time got thrown into the same school as me. So it's so funny. We had that like parallel experience there. And we weren't friends back then. Like we knew of each other, but we weren't friends. Like, isn't that funny?
Yes. Wow.
But the main takeaway that me and her sister all had was public school kids are mean. Yeah. Like we couldn't believe it, like coming from this environment where, you know, and I was involved in a homeschool co-op when I was a kid, and, you know, we had some issues, like you say bullying, I'm using air quotes, bullying, but it's like kids having interactions that maybe one of them doesn't like, you know, maybe it gets a little uncomfortable, but some of the things that happen in public schools go way beyond. I mean, sexual harassment, you know, all kinds of things that I'm just not even going to mention on the podcast because maybe I'll get censored. But all kinds of bad things.
They censor us already. I mean,
I know, right? Well, there's certain words I know but yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, I feel like that there's this idea that somehow this is better for kids to like go out there on their own and experience this. But I staunchly believe that having the parents there to help them navigate is so much better.
Yeah. I mean, yes, because I could talk to my son and say, why do you go off on your own? We're here you play with these kids when it's one-on-one. What is different? And I don't know. And, you know, and it took months and months of really talking about like, well, why do you like being the one in charge? Yeah, I do like being in charge. Oh, all right. Well, so you don't just want to like follow their game? No, I didn't want to. I want to do my own thing. You know, and it's like, okay, so it's not that you have anxiety around them or no, I don't think so. You know, it's like, so we can have those conversations, but I was there to witness something that was not how I thought it would go, and why is it going differently, you know? So,
and then having that choice to decide if you want to reframe the experience, if you want to have a different experience completely. You're not tied to like, well, that's your class. Yeah. You're stuck with it. Sorry, buddy. Oh, you hate your teacher. Your teacher's mean to you. Sorry. You just got to stick it out for the rest of the year.
You're so right. I didn't even think about that part. But yeah, you're right. Because we've been to groups where I'm like, I don't want you around my kid. There's something something in his eye. It ain't healthy. We're not going back. And yeah, so we don't do that one. And, or, even where, one that we go to now, my son is the youngest of the boys that hang out. So he has always kind of been just the one left behind, because it's like two brothers, and then my son. And so, yeah, and the two brothers, they're all neighbors with each other. So it's like, okay, well, if you go play if you want with them. If not, well, they all love fishing, so at least that can like rope them in. And then it's like, okay, well, let's have just these two over to go fishing. And then you can kind of build a relationship one-on-one with them. And then the next week we'll have the other ones over. And okay, now you guys can build a relationship. And okay, well, I see that they're good kids. It's just that they weren't really in an environment where they were ready to welcome in a new and younger kid. But once they had some one-on-one time, so it is interesting to get. And now it's like, okay, well, we're all at this field trip together, or these ones want to go mountain biking together. Yeah, that you can really. And he's still only 7, so it's like once it gets to 12 and older, it's only going to grow, and he'll be able to be friends with just who he wants to be friends with. And I know, in the classroom you get your pick out of the 30, but like you said, it's harder for us to say, I don't want you around that one when they are, because you got to think all of the stuff that these kids are coming to school with. The divorce rate today is 50% or more. So you've got a lot of families where you're dealing with, mom's working a lot. Maybe there's nobody in the house, or maybe a step-parent's in the house. Well, maybe mom and stepmom don't get along, and the kids are feeling that, or whatever. Or maybe someone's on, so many people today are on drugs, alcohol. So you've got that thrown into the households. You've got the social media. These kids are coming to school with a lot of trauma. And you're just putting your kid in the mix with it, if your kid doesn't already have trauma from whatever you've done to them. But it's quite a melting pot.
Yeah.
Everything else that's going on. And the social media is just another layer, because I didn't realize, I guess, how bad it was until I found this woman's profile on Instagram. It's called Scrollin' 2 with the number 2 death. Scrollin' 2 death. And she actually was in the social media world and then realized what it was doing to children and quit. And now she's kind of the advocate for that. And the stuff she says that, you could, for instance, I saw a reel she had today where she said, I created a teen account on Snapchat of her own. She's in her probably 40s. Created a teen account. I haven't been in it in weeks. I don't like anything. I don't post anything. But I'm going to show you what is scrolling on my feed on this teen account on Snapchat. And pretty much every single one was about suicide or harming yourself in some way. And maybe she's making this stuff up. I don't know, but I highly doubt she would have quit a well-paying job to speak out against this. I don't know where she would get the money from. Snapchat's not paying her. So it's very interesting. So now you've got these kids that are not playing with friends or hanging out with their family at night, but they're on these social media sites and being told to hurt themselves or hurt others, or it's really a lot going on. So the easiest way to keep your kid away from social media and cell phones in general is to homeschool, because the homeschool community, very few of them let their kids have phones. So it's been like the easiest way to be a Quaker. If that's even what they are. I don't know if that's what Quakers do. The Amish, whatever.
I'm not sure either, but I think the Amish. But and even if they do have access to it, again, you're there. You're there to like witness. Mm-hmm. If you're away from your child 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and they need that phone to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're not there. You're not there to answer questions. You're not there to see what they're doing, to look over their shoulder as you walk by. I let my girls have because we don't really have house phones anymore. It's so weird. So
that's why I wrote my children's book on how to handle emergencies, because if grandma drops dead, how's my 3-year-old going to know to call 911 from her locked cell phone? And it is possible. And it's but we don't have house phones. Well, I do now, but I'm the only one.
I do not. This is the first house I've owned that I do not have a landline anymore. So
we do just for emergencies in case they have to call 911. But yeah, it is crazy. And I just when we think about like, what's my kid looking at when they're sitting next to the kid on the bus? Because what's that kid scrolling? My kid might not have a phone, or maybe I have all the parental locks on that are allowed. But if, so Colin's not looking at anything on his own phone, but if he's sitting next to Jimmy and Jimmy's looking up some, half-naked girls and they're doing this, or maybe it's two boys doing something to each other, now my kid's seeing that on the bus.
That's what happened with my eldest in 5th grade. I put her in public school for a remediation because, like I said, she was behind on her reading, and so I sent her to a little tiny local school that I was told was really good, and that is exactly what happened. And she was introduced to porn in that way, and you can't unsee it. Yeah, yeah.
Man, it's so tough, and it's something that even just I worry about, even with being that, with family and innocently enough. And, this just happened to be the next thing scrolling. And you don't want to go too crazy, like you'll drive yourself insane. But it's hard to be a parent right now. And we watch Little House on the Prairie. I'm like, I long for those days. I never thought I'd say that. But, geez, what we have to deal with is really insane. Kids want to have a sleepover and you don't know what is even going to be presented. It used to just be like, oh my God, are they going to sneak out in the middle of the night and walk around the block or toilet paper a house? And now it's like, are they going to see, a grown man doing something to a child? And like you said, that is never unseen, and that's all over the internet. It's really terrifying.
It is, yeah. The unfettered access is pretty. It's pretty daunting, but yeah, again, like, being able to keep your kids close. And there does get a point, your eldest is 7. I've been through the whole teen thing. There does become a point. My eldest is 19. She has her own baby now. She's a mom. And at some point, you have to let go of that control. But the hope is that because you've been there to guide them and instill your values in them, that they will have a good head on their shoulders and be able to navigate the world. Yeah. And I see that with my 11-year-old. Like, she has such a good head on her shoulders. I trust her so much. And she comes to me. If she's uncertain about something, she comes to me and she asks my opinion. And that has been probably the biggest gift, to see them. And they're so independent too. They're so, my 4 young, even my 5-year-old, like she's just so independent. It's like it's been really amazing to watch.
Wow. You're never going to be on your deathbed and say, "Oh, I wish I spent less time with the kids."
Right? Yeah. Well, so I think we're getting about. We had a couple of pauses, so I'm not exactly sure how close we are to our hour, but I feel like we're about at it.
Yeah. You'll have a lot of editing to do.
Yeah, we had potty breaks and other mom emergencies we had to deal with. So. You have to go to my Patreon to get the unedited version of my podcast.
Awesome.
But I would kind of like to wrap this up with just kind of some takeaways from what you've learned. Like, you set out on this quest, talking to other moms in these homeschool groups. You set out on this quest to learn what about homeschooling was better, why it was better, how it was better, and bringing it back to how it brings more joy into your life, how it can make your life more ecstatic. So what have you learned in these years of doing this podcast?
When I think back to the quotes that stuck out the most to me that I still remember today, one is from Rosemary Larrabee, and she said, "You can have it all as a mom. You just can't have it all at the same time." And that really stuck out because it's like, how much do we all want to do? We want to learn how to bake sourdough and learn how to knit or sew. And we want to, work out, and we want to read to our kids for 15 minutes a day. And it's like there is so much. So just pick and choose, because and we want to run a podcast and have an Instagram page and have 100,000 followers. It doesn't all happen at once. It happens slowly. It unfolds. And the older the kids get, the easier that gets. But then they don't need you there to wipe their butt anymore, and someday we'll miss that. So, you can have it all, just not all at the same time. Another one is that everything your kids need to learn to be successful in life, they can learn in their high school years. The rest is just experiences together. That was really like reassuring to know. Like, did I mess them up because we're doing this curriculum of math and it might not have everything they need? It doesn't matter. If they want to be a mathematician, they'll learn what they need to know to pass the test to get into mathematician school. I think overarching too would be like game schooling was a big game changer for me, no pun intended. But we can play games, and that's homeschool. My 3-year-old is now to the age where she loves playing games too. So for a while it was me and my son would play Skippo or Mancala, or the one where you roll I don't know. There's so many games. Like, it's not just because I hated games growing up. I wasn't a Monopoly player. I didn't like Clue and Sorry. But there are so many more now that are actually really fun. So if you don't like one, find another. There are YouTube channels where people show you how to play the game so that you know before you buy it if this is something that you would like. I think I link like the people who have game schooling Instagram pages, and all they do is do reviews. So and give you ideas for, are you looking for math? Here's a game that will teach them their math stuff, so they don't have to sit there doing their learning from a textbook. They can do it in a game, or you're at least supplementing and fulfilling, that the extras, the practice, the homework that really can just be games. Let's see what else. I guess just that learning happens everywhere. It's like realizing it's literally everywhere. It's asking your kid to unload the dishwasher. It's asking them to vacuum, or asking them to pick weeds, or asking them to be quiet because you have a podcast to do and only come down in an emergency, which is when the 3-year-old needs to get wiped. But like, that's a learning experience for them too. Like, I'm in charge now. I'm the 7-year-old. I'm in charge. I have to make sure she's okay, that I'm okay. We have rules we have to follow. It happens everywhere. And that the fear of missing out, you have to think about kids in, like, I don't know, Guatemala or somewhere where, like, they're not worried about missing out on a football game. Like, there are Palestine. There are bigger things going on. Okay. Like, we don't have to worry about, am I giving my kid every single thing they need? There's no way you can give them every single experience on earth, right? And like the world schooler that learns just by traveling around the world is never going to have never going to know the life of a homesteader, right? A kid that learns on the homestead. Because when you got animals, you can't really travel. Not easily, at least. So those are two perfectly fantastic ways to educate your children, through world schooling and through homesteading. Yet those two kids will never know what life is like as the other child, because they're such different experiences, but they're both equally amazing. So it's really just and even city life. You live in the city. I can't homeschool because I'm in the city. You have access to everything around you, museums and parks and just so many things. And you want a garden, create a community garden, have all the kids in the neighborhood take part. There's probably already one established. Join that. And just that whatever you think your kid's missing out on, create it. Create the prom. There are homeschooling parents doing that. And the proms are bigger and better than what we can see. Anything your school can create, you can create it too. You want a Valentine's Day parade? Do a Valentine's Day or a Halloween parade, do it. There's just nothing that your kid needs to miss out on if you don't want them to. You can always create it. And none of us get the experiences of everybody in the world. So you just have to be okay with that.
Yeah, 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 100%. And I think that one of the big problems is people take the public school model and they bring it into their home
Yeah.
because that's what they think school is. Again, I'm using air quotes. School is that public school model. And it doesn't have to be that way. So if there's anybody out there that's listening to this that is a new mom and considering which way to go, or is a mom with kids in public school wondering if she should take them out, it can literally look however you want it. And learning can happen so organically. Math through baking and measurements and, just there's and games. Exactly. Like it really, when you step into the homeschooling world and you really embrace it, like life is your oyster. Like it really opens up so much. And I wish people understood that more. It doesn't have to look like workbooks and sitting at the table pulling your hair out because your kid doesn't want to learn how to read from you, right. Which is my original experience with homeschooling. My first daughter, it does not need to look like that. We put that pressure on ourselves to be the, again, air quotes, teacher. And that's not the way to do it.
Yeah. And I did it too. And my son, he's still struggling to learn. But I mean, I wouldn't even say it's struggling. It's just synapses connect at different times for everybody. His synapses, we're not connecting there. He is a young boy. He just in places like Finland, they don't even do any formal work with kids until they're 7. That's when like there some important teeth are growing in at that time, or maybe they're losing their teeth at that time. And it's this whole like as they turn 8, this whole change is going on inside of them. And I you know what I want to touch on too? The importance of just letting your kids sleep in the morning. I think that is one of the blessings of homeschooling that we don't talk about. These kids need sleep. They are going through things. They're going through growth spurts. Their brain is making connections and growing synapses. And there's so much going on. And to yank them awake out of a sleep and then give them cafeteria food. And in states like mine, where we can't be part of activities at school, like sports, in the state of New York. And you need to have all your vaccines on the schedule, too, in order to go to school. There's only 5 states that you need all of the childhood schedule. So anybody listening, do your research. But if you're in any of those 45 states, you can say, oh, no, I don't believe in, I don't want aborted fetal cells in my kid. And you can send them to school. You don't have to get anything on the schedule if you don't want them to, but they don't tell you that. Your pediatrician doesn't tell you that. So, and your pediatrician gets bonuses for the more they get in the office. So that's a whole other podcast. But, just be aware, do your research, look into it. Look at some documentaries that people have shunned and
listen to the Homeschool How To podcast, binge it, start at the beginning and listen through the whole thing. You probably learn more than you could ever know in any other way, right? About homeschooling.
Yeah, I don't censor anything on there. Probably that's why I'm not shared on YouTube. But hey, that's all right. But well, I guess those would be my parting words.
Awesome. And so in wrapping up, I would love for you to tell my audience how to get in touch with you, how to get your ebook, any other ways to work with you, how to find your podcast.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram mostly, the Homeschool How To Podcast. And you can listen to the podcast on any streaming service, Apple, Spotify, Pandora, all of them. And I am on YouTube and Rumble. I don't really put everything on Rumble because I forget. But I need one of those assistants, you got to get paid first. But and the ebook, you can go to thehomeschoolhowto.com. The ebook is there. I even have a free 30-day PDF, so you can just get that if you want to see what would my first 30 days look like as a homeschooling family? What do I need to know for the first 30 days? The laws, the reporting requirements, how to not make it look like school. What are the first steps? And that's totally free to you. So you can go to thehomeschoolhowto.com and, grab that from there, and that'll just get emailed to you. And, and my book, Let's Talk Emergencies, to talk to your kids about, because I realized in homeschooling my kid, I'm like, what do you do in an emergency? Where's the curriculum? There's no curriculum for this. This is number one thing. And what do you do if the house is on fire? What do you do if grandma's babysitting you and keels over. Because nobody has landlines anymore. So, my book walks you through those. What do you do if a stranger comes up to you? What do you do if a stranger messages you online, and they're saying they've got video games for you and, don't tell mom, meet me at the corner. Like these situations that come up now in this world that we live in, I didn't have to deal with as a kid, but that is on Amazon, Let's Talk Emergencies, or you can get to it at the homeschoolhowto.com as well. But so, yeah, that's all there. All that good stuff.
I will be sure to link everything in the show notes also. And I believe that by the time this podcast comes out, my episode that we just recorded for your podcast will already be out. So I will link that as well.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. It was so wonderful talking to you again.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole.
Yeah, I can definitely see a part 2 in the future. So hopefully we get to chat again. I wish you were down here in Florida. You could be a part of Four Corners.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah, my husband says in commercial HVAC he's not working on roofs in Florida. I've already asked.
That's too bad. Oh well.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here.